Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's session. So today we are going to be looking at or focusing on the Sabinet database as part of our postgraduate training program. My name is Lusanda Nyoka, and I am the Principal Librarian for Law, Humanities, as well as Education. For those of you that are in the science, commerce, and pharmacy faculties, the dedicated principal librarian for those faculties is Tandiwe Menzi. So you have access to people that can assist you alongside your research journey. So what we're going to do this afternoon, we're going to start off by going through a few PowerPoint slides. And then from the PowerPoint slides, we're going to do a live demonstration of the databases that we're going to be touching upon this afternoon. So an overview of today's session, we are going to look at Sabinet African journals. We're going to look at SA Media, which is part of the Sabinet databases. We are also going to look at Sabinet Discover, which also forms part of the Sabinet databases. Then we're going to do a live search demonstration across these three different sub databases. So one of the questions that we often get is, why must I use Sabinet when there's a lot of other databases that one can use? So we often recommend Sabinet to our students or library clients because it has a strong focus on African and South African research. With other databases, you'll find that there's very limited focus or contextualization of African as well as South African related issues. So if you want to look at it from a South African perspective, then Sabinet African Journals is one of the databases that you can make use of. Apart from looking at Sabinet African Journals, the sub-databases for Sabinet, that's SA Media, it also allows you to track public discourse through news archives. For an example, if you're in the journalism field and just want to see what news publications have been made with regards to a specific topic, then you have the SA Media component of the Sabinet databases in order to track public discourse on a subject. Now, as part of the Sabinet databases, you also, or we recommend that you use it because it will allow you access to South African legislation or acts or specific government gazettes. So it allows you access to a varied range of resources that can be very helpful depending on what your research focus is. Now, I'd mentioned that there is Sabinet African Journals, there's SA Media, as well as Sabinet Discover. So with regards to Sabinet African Journals, it is a full text database of African published journals, and it has a strong coverage of South African scholarship. The nice part about Sabinet African Journals is that it is interdisciplinary. As seen on the snippet here, it covers a wide range of collections, from education to law to religion, to science and technology, social sciences, and humanities. So you have the option to filter according to a specific collection when searching on Sabinet African Journals. So that is one of the selling points of the Sabinet African Journals database. And then with SA Media being an archive of South African newspapers. So with regards to SA Media, you're able to go through different news that have been published in South African newspapers. So it is also a very good sub-database to consult. And apart from SA Media being an archive for South African news, it can be used for public discourse analysis, for policy debates, for historical context, as well as media framing of issues. Because we do know that the media sometimes frames certain issues in a particular way. So the SA Media Set database can be used for such reasons or purposes. Now, we also have Sabinet Discover. So with regards to Sabinet Discover will allow you to do cross-searching, wherein you can search across journals and all the other sub-databases. But Sabinet Discover you'll mostly use for legislation as well as government gazettes. So that is where you'd go to. If you want to include a specific act, Sabinet Discover is your go-to sub-database on the Sabinet databases to use. So how then do you access the database? Your starting point is the library's website. So after starting on the library's website, we have an entry for databases A to Z. And apart from this entry on databases A to Z, you can also access these databases from your subject guide. For an example, if you are in the anthropology department, sociology, the law department, we have different subject guides according to the different departments that we have. So it is also advisable that you access these databases from your specific subject guides, because that's where you also get to see other databases that are recommended based off of your subject or your field. So subject guides are also important points in order for you to access the databases. But from the library's website, you'd go to the databases A to Z list. And from there, this is what you'd see, a list of these databases in alphabetical order. So here you have the option to search for the actual database, but I mostly recommend that you just click on the letters, alphabets listed there. So for that, you just need to know the first letter of the specific database. For an example, today we're looking at Sabinet, so there you'd select the letter S. And once you do that, you then get to see the list of databases that fall under the letter S that we have a subscription for at RU Library. And there you'll see SA Media, you'll see Sabinet African Journals, you'll see Sabinet Discover, which are all the sub-databases that I had alluded to, as well as the sub-databases that we are going to be looking at this afternoon. So let's say, for an example, you select SA Media. Once you select SA Media, this is what you'd see. So whether you select SA Media, Sabinet African Journals, you'll be taken to a screen that will give you the option to access the database. And once you click on the Access Database option, you'd then be asked to authenticate. Now, in order to authenticate, you can either authenticate as a staff member if you're staff, or as a student if you fall within the student category. But after you've selected your authentication source, if, for an example, you'd clicked on students, these are the details that would be required from you in order to access the database. So your username as well as your password. These are similar to the same details that you use to access your RU Connected or your ROS account. And if you had selected staff, this is what you'd see. You'd have to key in your Rhodes University email address as well as password. Now, on this part right here, should you have any problems accessing our databases off campus or on campus, please do email your specific faculty liaison for assistance so that we can have a look at what the problem is. So this is what the SA Media database looks like. And this is what Sabinet African Journals looks like. And this is what Sabinet Discover looks like. So now that we've gone through these PowerPoint slides, what we're going to do is we're going to head over to the live demonstration. So for the live demonstration, we're going to start off on the library's website. So we're going to start off on the library's website, and there's two ways in which you can access the library's website. The first is if you just Google Rhodes University Library, and the second is through the Rhodes University website. So that's the two ways in which you can access the Rhodes University Library. So once you do a simple Google search, there'll be an entry for the library there. And also on the Rhodes University website, there is an entry for the library at the top. And this is the screen that you would see once you access the university's library website. So I'd mentioned that there's two ways to access the databases. The first being through the databases A to Z option, and the second being through the Access My Subject Guide option. So over here, that's where we have the databases A to Z option. And over here is where we have the Access My Subject Guide option. So these are one of the two ways in which you can access our resources. So databases A to Z or access my subject guide. But for this afternoon, we're going to go with the databases A to Z option. And from there, I'd mentioned that you have the option to search for the database here, where you type in the database title or the keywords, or you can select the specific letter that the database starts with. So here we're going to select the letter S, and then we'll get to see a number of databases that fall within the letter S. So from the Sabinet databases, the first one that we're going to start with this afternoon is Sabinet African Journals. So I'm just going to click on Sabinet African Journals. And this is the landing page for Sabinet African Journals. If you're seeing something different, please do let us know so we can have a look at it. But ideally, this is what the landing page should look like. And on Sabinet African Journals, you're able to do a basic search. You are also able to do an advanced search. So for a basic search, if we click on the magnifying glass right to the left, an entry for a basic search will show up, and then you'll be able to enter your search terms. So we clicked on the magnifying glass, and then the option to do a basic search appeared. But you also have the option to do an advanced search, where you'd click on advanced search. And after clicking on advanced search, you'd be able to enter your search term and continue with your search. So for this afternoon, there's a number of scenarios that we're going to be going through as part of illustrating how to use Sabinet African Journals. And then we're just going to try and search across using those different scenarios that we have drawn up. So the first scenario, what we're saying is that a sociology student is researching the concept of Ubuntu in South Africa, right? And they decide, because it's in South Africa, their first starting point would be Sabinet African Journals. So what they can do is they can do a basic search. They can also do an advanced search. So we're going to illustrate an advanced search first. And I'm just going to type in my search string there, Ubuntu and South Africa. Now, you will notice that I used "and" in capital letters. If you had attended our previous sessions on information retrieval and searching strategies, we have what we call Boolean operators. So Boolean operators are very much useful in that you use them as connectors to your keywords. So the Boolean operator "and", what you're saying to the database is that I'm looking for this keyword as well as this keyword together, right? We also have the Boolean operator "or", where you are broadening your search to say, I'm looking for Ubuntu or humanity, to indicate to the database that either one of the two terms is fine. And then we also have the Boolean operator "not". Searching across databases differs. Some databases react positively to Boolean operators, even when you've used them in small letters, but the habit for Boolean operators is that they should be in capital letters in order for the database to pick it up that you're using it as a Boolean operator. And there I have South Africa in what we call a phrase search, and which looks like quotation marks. So we do phrase searching when we are looking at or searching for a specific phrase. I'm going to make an example with contemporary law. Contemporary on its own can be used in a different context. Law can be used in a different context. But if you want to say to the database, I'm particularly looking at these two from the viewpoint or standpoint of contemporary law, then you can use a phrase search. But I must mention that sometimes phrase searching can limit your search too much. And if you find that you're getting very limited results, you might want to go back and remove the phrase searching, then search again. So another thing that we're going to do before we run this search is that where it says anywhere, we're going to be specific to say we want to search for these within the title. We don't want to search for them anywhere. We specifically want to search for them in the title. So I'll select the title option. And as you scroll down, there'll be options to filter by a specific journal where this is published, but that is not important. There's also the publication date. But with the publication date as well, you can also filter that out once you've searched. And there's also the collections that we had mentioned or touched upon when we had mentioned that the Sabinet African Journals database is quite interdisciplinary in that it covers a wide range of collections. So for this search, we're going to go with the Social Sciences and Humanities collection. and then we're going to click on search. Now, we've had questions from students in the past asking, what happens if I select 2 to 3 collections? Nothing happens really. You'll still get your search results, but we often or strongly recommend that you select one collection at a time in order to see the quality of the search results that you're going to get from that specific collection. So we're going with social sciences and humanities, and then we're going to run our search. And once we've done our search, we have a total of 32 search results being returned. And as you continue to look at the first article there, at the top, it will say full access. So if it says full access and the padlock is green and unlocked, that means it's something that we have access to. If whilst searching on Sabinet African journals, most or all of the results on the first page that are returned have a red padlock with no access, please just check at the top if you have institutional access. If all the padlocks are red, you just click on the institutional access sign and then try signing in with Rhodes University. Because for most of the resources that are available on this database, it's resources that you should have access to as a Rhodes University student or staff member. Now, again, if you want to filter your search results according to the dates, you have that option on the left to filter by the date, to filter by a specific publication, and to further select from the different collections, publishers, or a specific language. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go with one of the articles here, and just to illustrate how do you go about downloading the article. You have the option to click on the title. If you're not certain if you would like to download this or not, you can click on the downward facing arrow next to the abstract. You'll be able to read the abstract and to download the abstract. I can't read this one. It seems to be in French, but you have the option to view the abstract and be able to decide whether or not this is something you want to use as part of your research. So I often say to students that clicking on the title just prolongs the process. If you want to download the PDF, you'd rather click on the PDF icon to the far left corner. When you click on the title, you'll still need to click on the PDF icon in order for it to open up. Then it's going to take a bit of time to open up the PDF. And once the PDF opens up, there'll be the downward facing arrow in order for you to be able to download this article and read it at a later stage. So that is the first thing that we're going to illustrate from this database. So what we had done, we had searched particularly for the title. We're just going to go back, and what we're going to do now is we're going to search for a specific author. Because it sometimes happens that when you're conducting research, your supervisor will mention prominent scholars within the field that you need to go look up or read their works. So Sabinet African Journals also allows you to look up a specific author or to search for works by a specific author. So just to recap on what we've done, we had clicked on the magnifying glass over there, and then we got to see the basic search option. And what we had done an advanced search. So again, you can go with advanced search, and where it says anywhere, you become specific to say you're looking for the author. And I'm just going to search for Metz this afternoon to see works that he has published. He's greatly known within the philosophy industry. I'm not going to filter by a specific collection. I'm just going to put down their name and surname, and then I'm going to search. So once I do that, all the articles that have been written by the specific author that I'd searched for will pop up. And then again, I'll have the option to read these articles, to download these articles, and probably cite the articles, which I will illustrate as we continue with our session today. So if it is that you've been asked to go look up works by a specific scholar, especially if they are a South African scholar, then Sabinet African Journals is one of the places you can go to explore such works by a specific scholar alongside the library's website. Now, that was a second scenario where we were looking at a specific scholar. And then the third one that we're going to look at is also an advanced search. but you can also do it as a basic search. So what we're going to do is that we are going to search for a specific search string. I'm just going to type it out. So the search string that we're going for, and the scenario that we're using is a public health researcher is investigating the impact of climate change on food security, but wants to exclude results that focus on fisheries. So that is the scenario that we're playing around with. So we've tried to formulate a search string there where we have impact, then our Boolean operator and then we have climate change and food security and we've grouped them by using brackets. And then we made use of our Boolean operator not, and then we mentioned that we're not interested in resources on fisheries. You have the option to select a specific journal wherein this could be published. But what we're going to do is we're going to filter out by a specific collection. And for this one, because we're looking at climate change and food security, there's a number of collections that you can filter out. But for this afternoon, we're going to go with the science, technology, and agriculture collection. So we'll filter by that and then we'll search. And once we search, we'll start seeing articles on the impact of climate change and food security. So it's quite useful to try and play around with keywords whenever it is that you're generating or conducting a search. And I must mention that with keywords or generating search strings, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. But I strongly recommend that you start little by little and you'll soon get the hang of things and you'll now start mastering using search strings across databases. So this was another search that we had done, and there's a number of search results for articles that we have access to and can read and download for a later purpose. And then the next step that we want to look at is a different scenario. And in this scenario, what we're saying is that a political scientist wants to be notified of new articles published on electoral systems in Southern Africa. So if, for an example, you are conducting research on a specific subject and want to be notified each time there's something new on that subject, you have the option to save the search and select when you'd like to be notified on that specific search. But I must mention that in order for this to happen, you need to be signed in, not with just the institutional account, but with your own Rhodes University personal account that you would have created. I'll illustrate that now. And what we're going to do first, we're just going to search for electoral systems, and we'll be making use of the search. So again, I'll just go with the search string there, electoral systems. Hoping spelling is okay, electoral systems, and Southern Africa. And Southern Africa. And then I'll just search. And then once I've searched, there's going to be a number of resources or results that are brought back on the specific subject. And then what you would then do is, if you want to save this search, you have the option to click on this magnifying glass with a plus sign. If you click on it, it's going to allow you to save the search where you enter a search name, and then you'd get to select when you want to be notified of any new results that are available under this new search. And then you'd be able to save your search. So from my side, I'm already signed in, but if you've not signed in, it would ask you to sign in or to create or register for an account. So where there is that human sign there, that will show that I'm already signed in. My profile will appear there. So if you're not signed in, you might want to sign in. And once you're signed in, if you click on your profile, it will give you the profile option and you can open that up. And once you open that up, it will start with your personal details. But as you scroll down, there'll be an option for the alerts. There'll be an option for saved searches as well. And for the saved searches, you can see if there's any searches that you've saved or that you have access to. And if you want to run a search that you've saved, you have that option to run the search again, and then you'll be able to see the results that formed part of that specific search. Now, another thing that I'd like to touch on or to highlight is that as you are doing your research on this specific database, you'll also want to ensure that you export or you save your references. So if it is that you are using a reference manager on the Sabinet African Journals database, you have the option to export your citations into a reference manager. I'm going to make an example with the first article. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on the little tick box there, and then it says, there's a part where it says for selected items, please select. If you click on that drop down arrow there, it will give you the option to email or recommend, add to favorites, as well as the option to export citations. So once you click on export citations and you scroll down a bit, it's going to give you an option for the format. Now, with the format, it depends on the reference manager that you're using. If you are using RefWorks, there is an option for RefWorks there. But if you are using Zotero, then the exportation that you need to use is the RIS, because that is compatible with the Zotero database. So for an example, I use Zotero. If I click on the RIS, what it's going to do is it's going to download the citation. Once I click on download, it will download the citation, and I just double click on the citation. Then it will ask me, do you want to import the file citation into a new collection? Then I'll click OK. Then when I'm typing up my assignment on Word, I'll be able to insert the specific citation because it has been exported into my Zotero library. So those are some of the options that you have access to or can make use of on the Sabinet African Journals database. Now, apart from what we had done, which was a basic search as well as an advanced search, so on the specific database, as you scroll down, you'll get to see the latest articles that have been published or that are available or accessible. And you can see that most of these articles continue down to give you the different topics that form part of the database that you also have access to exploring. So there's quite a number of things that you can do within the Sabinet African Journals database. But what I strongly recommend is once you have your specific topic, especially if it is within the South African or the African context, Sabinet African Journals is your go-to place. Just try and work around formulating set strings and then running your searches on this specific database. So from Sabinet African Journals, we are going to cross over to the other Sabinet sub-database. But I would also like to mention that should you be conducting a search on Sabinet African Journals and you see that we do not have access to the resource, we do have what we call interlibrary loans, where we can request that article from an institution that has the specific article available for you. So there's that option. So I'll go back again to my databases A to Z list. So we had gone with Sabinet African Journals, and from Sabinet African Journals, we'll now move on to SA Media. So SA Media is the second database that we're going to look at. So you then have the option to access the database, which I'll click on that. And let's quickly see. Okay, so this is what it should bring you to. And at the top there, it already specifies that access provided by Rhodes University Library. Just pay attention when you open Sabinet All SA Media. Where it says product, it should reflect all SA Media. If it reflects all content, then try and change it to all SA Media. If it reflects net law, just try and change the product type to what it is that you are looking for. So this one is for all SA Media. So we'll go with the search. Again, there you have the option to do a basic search. You have the option to do an advanced search. But the nice feature, again, is the fact that you also have the option to browse what's new. So this will give you the latest resources that they have uploaded onto the platform that you can read through and can download alongside the different publishers that these are from. So we just clicked on what's new, which will allow you to explore what has been loaded and when it was loaded on the specific database. You also have an option to browse through the publication list if it is that you're not sure what can you find on this specific publication list for SA Media. There's a number of newspapers that you can find. So if you're not sure about where to find a specific newspaper, the publication list is also very much helpful in order for you to see what we have access to. But what we're going to do is we're going to run two basic searches. The first one, let's say you're conducting research on student protests and would like to see how the media portray student protests within the news, as well as what has been the developments when it comes to student protests. So I'm just going to type that. Student protests. And then we'll search. So I just typed it out, student protests. I didn't use a phrase search, but it is very much a friendly database in that it will still bring back results that dealt or news articles that dealt with student protests. Again, if the padlock is green and is unlocked, that means that's something we have full access to. But again, here you have the option to filter by a specific year. And next to each year, you can see the number of results that are available for that particular year. And it does seem that there's a number of news articles that are published on student protests each year. So you have those filter options. You also have the filter options by a specific collection. And apart from the collections, you also have specific publications or newspapers that you can select if it is that you want to search within a specific or a particular newspaper. Again, here, you're able to briefly read the abstract, but you also have the option to click on the title or the option to click on the downward facing arrow in order to download this and read it at a later stage. So if you download it, you'll be able to then read the article or to download and print it out, whichever way you prefer. So that was just on student protests. But again, if you are looking at a different topic, this is to just illustrate that SA Media covers a wide range of news articles. So whatever topic that you're looking at, if you want to look at the discourse analysis or at the media side of things, then the All SA Media sub-database is a good place to go to. And I'll also run another search for one of the most popular issues that Magana is well known for. So I'll just go with Magana, bullion operator, and then water, and then I'll search to see if there's any news articles popping up on that. Then you'll get to see news articles that deal with or speak to Magana as well as the water challenges associated with Magana. And again, you have the options to filter by a specific year if you would like to do that in order to get the relevant article that you are interested in. So again, SA Media, as I mentioned, is a very good platform to look at or to go through if it is that you'd like to see the news that have been published on a specific subject. So that is about it with regards to SA Media. From SA Media, we'll now move to the last sub database, being Sabinet Discover. So I'll close SA Media, and then we'll go back to our A to Z list. And then we had selected the letter S, then we'll click on Sabinet Discover. So I had mentioned that Sabinet Discover will allow you to cross-search, but that Sabinet Discover is mostly or mainly used for legislation. I was on All SA Media just now, and we just clicked on Sabinet Discover, but you can see that on the product, it's still on All SA Media. So please do pay attention when switching between the databases. So where it says All SA Media, you can just scroll up and then select Net Law. So Net Law is for the national legislation that we subscribe to, that's under the product. If you're looking for national legislation, you'd filter by Net Law. If you're looking for provincial gazettes or provincial legislation, those are some of the options that you have access to. So right underneath where it says product, you just click on the drop-down arrow, and then for legislation, you'd go with net law or provincial legislation or government gazettes. For this afternoon, we're going to go with national legislation. And with this platform, you also have the option to explore what's new, but you also have the option to browse the list of acts, either in alphabetical or in chronological order. So it also has that option available to you. So once you click on list of acts, if you select the alphabetical order, you'll then get to see a number of letters at the top there. And if, for an example, the specific act that you want to access is the South African Schools Act, I'll just click on the letter S. There's a number of acts that start with the letter S. Just going to try see if I can find the South African Schools Act. MNOPQRS. There we go. South African Schools Act 84 of 1996. So you have the option to browse by the list of acts, but this database also allows you to type in the act at the top. I'm going to make an example. Once you start typing in, it's going to bring out recommendations. It's going to bring out a number of recommendations that you can have a look at. So if you don't want to use the browse option, but just want to type it in, as you type it in, there's going to be recommendations that pop up. And from this example here, we can see the South African Schools Act popping up, and you just be able to select that specific act. And once you select that specific act, next to the act, right on the left, there's going to be a PDF icon, which you can use to download the actual act. And one of the reasons why we often say to students that if you're looking at legislation, if you're looking at government gazettes, please access them from Sabinet Discover or any of the law-related databases. Because if you use Google, you are putting yourself at a risk of accessing legislation that is probably outdated. So when you are on the Sabinet Discover platform, whatever it is that you're accessing is up to date and is the latest. For an example, if we look at the act number there, if we look at the commencement date, there's also the date in which this was modified. So the reason why we recommend that you use this database for legislation instead of Google is that it will provide you with up-to-date resources. Now, as I mentioned, you have the PDF option there to download, but what I like about this database is that it has other resources that you can use. As we scroll down on the legislation, it will give you an option to the far left for related legal content, for related news content, for related reference content, and for related journals. So it's sort of by you searching for a specific act or legislation, you can get to view other resources as well. For an example, if I click on the related journals, you'll get to see journal articles that discussed the different sections of this particular act that we had searched for. So that is some of the nice things that it does. What it also does is that apart from the journals, it also gives you the related news contents with regards to this specific act. Remember, I mentioned that Sabinet is the overall database with the different sub-databases that we looked at, African journals, SA Media, and now Discover. So it has the options wherein it links these together and you're able to access them. It will also give you an option to view the judgments that are associated with this specific act. If you just scroll down within the center, there's an option for judgments there. It is important to note that we do not subscribe to the judgments. So if there is a specific judgment that you're looking for here, do not hesitate to take a snippet of that specific judgment and then send it to your specific faculty liaison for assistance. So that is some of the things you would use the Sabinet Discover platform for. But again, apart from just national legislation, as I had mentioned, that it also has provincial legislation and also has access to specific government gazettes, which is where most notices are published or made accessible to people. So Sabinet Discover is also one of the platforms that you can make use of when conducting your research. And I think that is about it with regards to the three platforms. I'm just going to click on the PDF option of the act that we had accessed. And as you scroll down, you can see when last this was amended. So it was last amended by the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act 32 of 2024. Whereas if you go to Google and you do a Google search for the South African Schools Act, it could be that the last amendment will not be the year 2024. So what you're essentially doing is you are at a risk of accessing legislation or an act that has been updated and you don't have access to the sections that have been specifically updated. So that is Sabinet Discover. We also have touched on Sabinet African Journals alongside SA Media. So all these three databases are there for you to make use of. And I do know that there are students that make use of Google Scholar, but I do want to mention that Google Scholar does not always pull from all the databases that we subscribe to. So by going to Google Scholar, you might not get articles that are published on Sabinet African journals because it doesn't pull out from everything. So it is still very much important to go to the databases that we show you and to conduct searches within those specific databases. And that will be it from me today. Remember, you do have access to research support through your principal faculty librarians. For law, humanities, and education, the relevant contact persons is myself, Lusanda Nyoga, and for commerce, pharmacy, and science, the relevant contact person is Ms. Tandiwe Menze. I'd also like to highlight and to extend an invitation to another session that's going to be taking place tomorrow. You are more than welcome to register and to join us for the session. Okay, Tabile just mentioned that there is a question in the chat. If the article is written in a language other than English, how can I translate the content into English? The best bet here would be making use of artificial intelligence tools such as Google Translate. So the question was that if the article is written in a language other than English, how can I translate the content into English? So other databases have started including translation options for the articles that they have in different languages, but they do make a disclaimer that such articles are translated using artificial intelligence and that there is room for mistakes and stuff like that. But Sabinet African Journals at the moment does not have an inbuilt translation tool that you can use in order to be able to translate a specific article. So what I am just going to do is I've gone back to SA Media and I just want to click on the publications list. And as you go through the publications list, you'll get to see the different the different newspapers that are available on this specific list. So you go to the publication list, and if on the publication list what you're looking for is not available or is not listed here, what I would suggest as your backup or go-to platform, it would be the other database that we have access to, which is mostly for news, that being Press Reader. So if you go through the publication list and cannot find a specific publication that you're interested in, please go have a look at what we subscribe to on the Press Reader database, which can also be accessed via the A to Z list that we have available here. I'm just going to quickly divert and show you what Press Reader looks like, and then I'll continue to answer the last question. Okay, so this is what we also have access to, the press reader. So you can also check for other newspapers on this platform here, which is a platform that we have access to at Rhodes University. So if you can't find what you're looking for on the SA Media platform, you can check Press Reader. And it sometimes does happen that you will find some news articles on the Access Global. I think Sue is already responding to that. You could also use the Access Global News Bank and also to access other news sources. So there's a number of databases that we subscribe to that we can make use of. And I see the other question is, does it incorporate procurement rules and regulations information? Yes, if such regulations were published in a government gazette, then you'll most definitely find them within the Sabinet Discover platform. But what I would suggest, Nosbulelo, is to have a session or book a session with your faculty liaison so that they can have a look at what it is that you're interested in or what it is that you're looking at. Then they'll be able to redirect you to the specific platform to look at. For an example, if it were law, then on the LexisNexis platform, when you download a piece of legislation, it sometimes comes with the regulations of that specific act that governs the specific area that you're interested in. So that is some of the options that we have access to. And I think the other question was, can I please show you how to sign in? So for that specific one, I'm just going to go back to Sabinet African Journals, letter S, and then Sabinet African Journals. So on Sabinet African Journals, what I would probably need to do first, I'm signed in, so let me log out. So this is what would happen on the database. So what you do is you click on the profile icon there. And once you click on the profile icon, it's going to be a bit tricky to illustrate because I already have an existing account. So for me, I just key in my email address and password and then continue. But if you've not created an account, are you a new user? What you then do is you'd sign up and then you'd key in your Rhodes University address, email address. For me, it will probably let me know that I'm already signed up or there's already an existing user. But once you click on the sign up option, key in your email address, continue, then key in your password. And from that, you should be able to then later on sign in. But if it's still not working or giving you problems, you're more than welcome to send me an email and then we can have a look at what the problem is. But what I strongly recommend is that as you are continuing with your research, whatever it is that you are looking for, or whenever it is that you are in doubt, please do consult someone from the library. You have help available to attend to your needs. And if it's something that we don't have, we'll try and source it from an institution that probably has it. And that will be it for today. I think I've covered the questions. Thank you very much once again for attending, and we hope to see you in our session tomorrow, where we are going to be looking at other databases as well. So tomorrow we are specifically going to be looking at the Scopus and Science Direct databases, and this will be conducted by Ms. Tandiwe Mendes. So hope to see you tomorrow. To enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.